It was early on the morning of October 29, 2025, 7:47 a.m. Eastern Time, to be exact, when something extraordinary happened, just out of sight behind the sun. I was in my modest flat in Canterbury, nursing a cup of strong black coffee, when the news broke. The interstellar comet, which scientists had dubbed Trinity Atlas, had reached perihelion, its closest approach to our star, the Sun, at a distance of 203 million kilometers from its surface. Now, imagine this. For the first time in 10 billion years, this ancient visitor from beyond our solar system felt the warmth of a star's furnace. And then, as if it were playing a cosmic game of hide-and-seek, it vanished behind the sun for 8 days. Our most powerful telescopes here on Earth? Completely blind. Ground observatories? Useless. It was like trying to spot a needle in a haystack during a total eclipse in a fog. The comet had slipped behind the bright solar glare, performing its secretive maneuver in complete privacy. But here's the hair-raiser. In those hours before it disappeared behind the sun, Trinity Atlas began to brighten rapidly. Its glow intensified at a rate that made every comet we've ever seen look like a dim candle in a storm. And the color? It shifted to a shade bluer than the sun itself. Yeah, you heard me right, bluer than the sun. Let that sink in. This icy rock, which should have been freezing and dull, suddenly shone hotter and bluer than our very own star. If comets could have a fashion statement, Trinity Atlas was rocking a sapphire tuxedo while the sun was still in its casual yellow tee. The next day, October 30th, the Punch satellite constellation caught the first images of Trinity Atlas as it emerged from the solar glare. NASA's automatic tracking systems showed the comet sticking to its expected path. No sudden course changes, no gravitational tricks steering it toward Earth. At least, that's what the public data claimed. But, and here's the kicker, there were gaps in the story. NASA allegedly had high-res images from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, taken when Trinity passed about 30 million kilometers from Mars on October 2nd. When a Harvard astrophysicist named Avi Lowe requested those images, the response was silence. Crickets. Meanwhile, China's Purple Mountain Observatory, which had been tracking the comet intensively through August and September, suddenly stopped releasing data right after the Mars flyby. Officially, scheduling conflicts with lunar missions. Sure, because nothing says busy like chasing a rock hurtling through space, right? The timing was suspicious, to say the least. This wasn't just wild speculation to fuel conspiracy theories in your local pub. It was a puzzle with missing pieces. Because even without those secret images, what we could see already defied explanation. You see, this comet wasn't just passing through randomly. Its trajectory aligned almost perfectly with the plane where all our planets orbit, the ecliptic, within 5 degrees. The odds of that happening by chance? About 1 in 500. Then it made close flybys near Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, all timed perfectly so it would disappear behind the sun during perihelion. The combined odds of all these alignments happening naturally? 5 in 100,000. To put it bluntly, Trinity Atlas was playing cosmic chess, not checkers. Then there was the weirdest thing of all. Between July and August, multiple observatories including Hubble spotted a sunward jet, a stream of gas and dust blowing toward the sun. Now, you might think that's no big deal, but comets always have their tails pointing away from the sun, pushed by solar radiation pressure. A sunward jet? That's like a leaf blowing into a hurricane. It made no sense. And then, right before perihelion, it vanished. The comet's plume shifted direction, becoming normal again. It was as if Trinity Atlas had suddenly remembered the rules of comet behavior, or someone flipped a cosmic switch. And that's just the beginning. The gas venting from the comet contained a lot of nickel but almost no iron. The nickel-to-iron ratio matched industrial alloys, the kind of stuff you'd find in a factory, not floating in space. And the water content was shockingly low, only 4%, when typical comets are more like 70 to 80%. Plus, the way light polarized off its surface was unlike anything seen before. Even stranger, the comet's path lined up with the direction of the infamous "wow" signal detected in 1977. A mysterious radio burst from space that no one has ever explained. The odds of all these anomalies stacking up? 1 in 10 quadrillion. That's like winning the lottery 34 million times in a row. So, was Trinity Atlas just the luckiest comet in history? Or something else entirely? I'm telling you this because I was there when it happened. I tracked those announcements, watched the images trickle in, and felt that mix of awe and unease. What was this thing? A natural comet? Or an ancient relic from a vanished civilization? The universe was whispering secrets, and Trinity Atlas was the messenger. And as I stared at the pre-dawn sky, wondering if I'd catch a glimpse of that mysterious blue glow through my telescope, one question burned bright. What happened when Trinity Atlas disappeared behind the sun? What changed in those hidden hours? Because whatever it wasn't finished revealing its story. The morning after Trinity Atlas slipped behind the sun, I found myself restless, pacing my small flat in Canterbury like a man waiting for a kettle to boil, except this kettle was light years away, and the stakes felt cosmic. I poured another coffee, glanced at the sky just beginning to pale with dawn, and tried to wrap my head around what I just heard. You see, comets are usually the shy sort, icy wanderers that show up, put on a gentle glow, and fade away. But Trinity Atlas was a diva of the cosmos. It had gone behind the sun's blinding glare like a magician slipping behind a curtain, and what it did during that private act, nobody knew. The public telescopes were useless. Ground-based observatories were blind. It was the biggest cosmic cliffhanger since Doctor Who left the TARDIS doors open. Inside NASA's control rooms, if the leaks and quiet murmurs were anything to trust, the atmosphere must have been electric with tension. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-res images from October 2nd? Locked tighter than the Queen's crown jewels. Avi Lowe, the Harvard astrophysicist who had been publicly pushing for transparency, probably felt like he was chasing shadows. And the Chinese Purple Mountain Observatory's sudden silence? It was like they'd all agreed on a game of cosmic poker, and nobody wanted to show their hand. What could have been so sensitive about those images? After all, Trinity Atlas was just a comet, right? Well, that's where things get juicy. Imagine something the size of Manhattan, 5 kilometers across, hurtling through space with a mass of 30 billion kilograms. That's not a stray pebble. It's a mountain-sized enigma. And it wasn't just any comet, it was ancient. 10 billion years old, which means it formed before our sun even existed. Before Earth. Before dinosaurs. Before someone thought it was a good idea to put pineapple on pizza. And yet, it had held together. No fragmentation. No imploding under the sun's intense heat and gravity. It survived perihelion like a cosmic champion boxer dancing through punches. The structural integrity alone suggested it wasn't your run-of-the-mill dirty snowball comet. It was more like a cosmic battleship, built to last. Now, while the rest of us were squinting at blurry screenshots and debating over lukewarm coffee, some scientists were diving into the spectral data, the chemical fingerprints of the gases the comet was venting. And that's where the plot thickened faster than a London fog. Trinity Atlas was spewing nickel gas. Yep, metallic nickel vaporized and streaming into space at about 4 grams per second. Sounds tiny, but do the math. Over 4 months, that's roughly 40 tons of nickel. For a natural comet, that's bonkers. Nickel has a boiling point of nearly 3,000 degrees Celsius. The comet's surface temperature at perihelion didn't come close to that. So where was the heat coming from? Internal energy? Some secret chemistry? Or, hold on to your hats, something else? And here's a detail that had me rubbing my eyes in disbelief. The nickel-to-iron ratio was way off. In natural cosmic objects, iron dominates, nickel tags along like the sidekick. But Trinity Atlas reversed the roles, mimicking human-made industrial alloys. It was like finding a Rolls-Royce engine inside a medieval cart. At this point, you might think I was losing my marbles. But I swear, the data was stacking up like a detective novel where every chapter deepens the mystery. The comet's water content was laughably low, just 4%. Most comets are basically giant ice cubes with a sprinkle of dust. Trinity Atlas was more like a dry sponge wearing a frosty coat. And then there was the behavior of its tail. In July and August, astronomers observed a sunward jet, a stream of gas blowing toward the sun, defying the very laws of comet physics. Normally, solar wind pushes dust and gas away from the sun, creating the classic tail. But this comet, cheeky as ever, sent a plume right into the sun's face. Multiple observatories from different vantage points confirmed it. That anti-tail stuck around for weeks, then vanished as suddenly as a magician's rabbit, flipping back to a normal tail before disappearing behind the sun. I half expected Trinity Atlas to pull out a top hat and cane and tap dance across the solar system. So what was going on behind the sun? Was the comet hiding secrets? Was it undergoing some transformation no human eye had witnessed? Was it even alive, well, by comet standards, or worse, was it something manufactured, maybe a probe designed to mimic a comet? I tried to picture the scene on the comet's surface. No atmosphere, a barren, ancient rock hurtling at breakneck speed. Yet somehow, it was glowing blue-hot, venting industrial metals, flipping its tail like a cosmic rebellious teenager. It was as if Trinity Atlas had a personality and a plan. As the sun rose higher that morning over Canterbury, I grabbed my coat and binoculars, heading to the local hilltop where the horizon was clearest. I wasn't expecting to see the comet. It was still too close to the sun's glare, but I wanted to feel connected, to touch the mystery even if only in spirit. And as I gazed eastward, I couldn't shake the feeling that Trinity Atlas wasn't done with us yet. Behind that blinding sun, something had changed. Something was waiting to be revealed. But what exactly? That's the question that kept me awake, staring at the pale dawn sky. What happened behind the sun during those 8 secret days? Because the next chapter of this cosmic saga was about to unfold, and whoever was watching, I hoped they had popcorn ready. The days after Trinity Atlas reappeared from behind the sun were electric with anticipation, and a bit of unease. I decided to make my way to the village observatory just outside Canterbury. A charming old brick building with a domed roof that had seen more starry nights than I had cups of tea. The small group of amateur astronomers who ran it were buzzing, their chatter a mix of excitement and frustration over the missing data and unexplained anomalies. Inside, I found Emma, a sharp-eyed woman in her early 30s, always dressed with a subtle flair that suggested she might moonlight as a vintage film star. Today, she wore a flowing navy blue blouse tucked into high-waisted trousers, her auburn hair pinned back with a delicate silver clip shaped like a crescent moon. Her eyes sparkled behind thin-rimmed glasses as she adjusted the telescope's focus. "Did you see those images from the Punch satellites?" she asked without looking up. "The glow around Trinity Atlas is insane. It's like it's wearing an electric blue halo." I nodded. "Bluer than the sun. That's what's baffling everyone. No natural comet should be glowing hotter than the sun's surface." Emma smirked, a hint of mischief in her voice. "Maybe it's trying to outshine the sun to get a better tan. Or just showing off. Typical diva behavior." We both laughed, but the mood quickly sobered. The observatory's instruments had been tracking the comet's movement carefully, and so far, Trinity Atlas was sticking to the predicted trajectory. No sudden shifts, no course corrections. But that didn't mean it was behaving normally. "What puzzles me," Emma said, pulling out spectral data printouts, "is the composition. The nickel gas venting is off the charts. And the lack of iron. It's like someone swapped the cosmic recipe." I leaned over the papers. Industrial alloys, right? Not something you'd expect from a natural object drifting through space for 10 billion years. Exactly. And then there's the water content. For percent. That's barely a damp rag compared to typical comets. You'd think a comet that old would be a dried-out husk, not this active venting machine. We stared at the data in silence for a moment, the faint hum of the observatory's computers filling the room. "You ever think," I ventured, "that maybe it's not a comet at all?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "You mean like an alien spaceship disguised as a rock? Because that's a bit sci-fi, even for me." I grinned. "Call it a thought experiment. If you were an ancient civilization sending probes across the galaxy, how would you design one to survive billions of years? Maybe something that looks like a comet, blends in, uses the sun's energy to recharge." Emma tapped her fingernail on the table thoughtfully. "Using the sun as a charging station, clever. And it would explain the blue glow, maybe some internal heat source or technology generating that light." I nodded, feeling that familiar thrill of standing on the edge of the unknown. But if that's true, why keep the trajectory so predictable? No course corrections, no detours toward Earth or Mars. We could be looking at a probe with a very specific mission, Emma suggested. Survey the sun, gather data, then move on. Earth's just a pit stop, not the destination. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. The idea that something so old, so vast, so mysterious was passing through our cosmic neighborhood without bothering to say hello was unsettling. Outside, the sky was shifting from pre-dawn gray to a soft morning blue. Through the observatory's dome, the sun was rising, casting long shadows across the countryside. Somewhere out there, Trinity Atlas was blazing its electric blue trail, a silent enigma against the vastness of space. As Emma and I packed up the equipment, I couldn't help but wonder about those 8 days behind the sun. The blackout period when no one knew what the comet was doing. Had something changed inside it? Had it activated some hidden mechanism? Or was it just the universe playing a cosmic prank on us? One thing was certain. The story of Trinity Atlas was far from over. And as the comet continued its journey away from the sun, its secrets were only beginning to unravel. But just as we were about to leave, Emma glanced at her phone and frowned. "Hey, have you seen this?" she asked, showing me a breaking news alert. My heart skipped a beat. It read, "Unexplained signal detected near Mars during Trinity Atlas flyby. Official silence from agencies." The game had just changed. That news alert hit me like a thunderclap. An unexplained signal near Mars during Trinity Atlas's flyby? And yet, official channels were tight-lipped. I glanced at Emma, whose fingers trembled slightly over her phone screen. The observatory's warm glow suddenly felt colder, as if the universe itself had drawn a veil over what was really happening. "I knew something was off," Emma muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Those gaps in the data, the silence from agencies, it's like they're hiding something." I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. It reminded me of all those conspiracy theories we laughed off as kids. Government cover-ups, alien visitations, secret space missions. Except now, with Trinity Atlas, those stories weren't just fantasy anymore. They were questions demanding answers. We decided to dig deeper. Our modest observatory wasn't equipped for deep space signal analysis, but we had contacts, old friends from the university, radio amateurs, and a network of enthusiasts who monitored the skies for anything unusual. I fired off a few emails, trying to connect with anyone who might shed light on the mysterious Mars signal. While waiting for replies, Emma and I pored over the last bits of observational data. The comet's brightness continued to outpace all known models, like an ancient lighthouse suddenly ramping up its beam after eons of silence. And the spectral signature? Still dominated by that baffling nickel emission, absent the iron that should have been there. Emma toyed with a silver pendant dangling from her neck, a delicate star-shaped charm catching the morning light. "You ever think," she said slowly, "that maybe Trinity Atlas isn't just a probe or a comet, but a message?" "A message?" I echoed, intrigued. "Yeah," she said, eyes distant. "Something left behind by a civilization long gone. Like a cosmic time capsule, carrying secrets from a universe that no longer exists." It was a creepy thought, but somehow comforting too. A relic from a past so ancient it predated our own sun, carrying whispers from a forgotten era. Just then, my phone buzzed. A reply from an old friend, Pete, a radio astronomer based in Cornwall. "Crazy stuff," his message read. "Mars flyby data is classified, but some colleagues heard faint, structured signals coinciding with the comet's closest approach. No idea what it means yet. Keep watching." Structured signals. That was the phrase that stuck with me. Not random noise, not natural bursts, but organized pattern transmissions. The kind only intelligence could produce. I shared the message with Emma. She paled slightly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. If that's true, then Trinity Atlas might not just be a visitor, could be calling out. Or worse, we might have triggered something. Her words hung in the air like the scent of rain before a storm. The sun rose higher, casting golden light through the observatory's windows, But outside, the sky felt heavy with secrets. That night I couldn't sleep. The image of that blue glowing comet haunted me. A silent sentinel from 10 billion years ago, venting nickel gas, defying physics, and now possibly transmitting signals from the edge of the solar system. The universe had just dropped a puzzle into our backyard, and the pieces weren't fitting together. Was Trinity Atlas a natural relic, a piece of ancient planetary debris? Or was it something else entirely, an artifact of a vanished civilization, a probe carrying messages across the stars? And if it was sending signals, what was it saying? Was it a greeting, a warning, or simply a cosmic echo from a time long past? As dawn crept over Canterbury again, I made a silent vow. I'd follow this mystery wherever it led, even if it took me to the edge of reason or beyond. Because some secrets, I realized, refused to stay hidden forever. And Trinity Atlas was just getting started. That night, as the village of Canterbury slipped into quiet slumber, I found myself wide awake, pacing the narrow hallway of my flat like a restless ghost. Outside, the moon hung low in silver, casting pale light over the rooftops, but inside my mind, the cosmos was ablaze with questions. Trinity Atlas, the comet, the enigma, the possible cosmic messenger, had shifted from a distant curiosity to an obsession that refused to loosen its grip. The strange signal near Mars wasn't just a footnote anymore. It was a beacon pulling me deeper into the mystery. I couldn't shake the thought that somewhere, hidden in the static of space, a message waited, one that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The next morning, I met up with Emma again at the observatory. She was already there, perched on a stool beside the telescope, dressed in a fitted emerald green sweater that complemented her fiery hair, and those same silver crescent clips catching the low light. Her presence was comforting, a steady anchor in the storm of uncertainty. "We got a response from Pete," I said, holding up my phone. "He says some colleagues picked up faint radio pulses during the Mars flyby, structured, repeating patterns. Nothing definitive, but enough to raise eyebrows." Emma's eyes lit up. "Structured signals? That's what we've been waiting for. It means it's not random noise. Could be artificial." I nodded. But the official silence is deafening. No confirmation, no details. Just crickets. She sighed, reaching into her bag and pulling out a worn notebook filled with scribbles, diagrams, and spectral charts. If Trinity Atlas is transmitting, even faintly, it's doing so on frequencies we don't usually monitor. Maybe it's deliberately subtle, like a whisper in a crowded room. We spent hours poring over data, cross-referencing frequencies, timing, and the comet's position relative to Mars and the Sun. The more we looked, the more the anomalies piled up like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle missing key pieces. At one point, Emma looked up, her expression half serious, half playful. "You ever get the feeling we're chasing ghosts? That Trinity Atlas is some ancient cosmic prank?" I chuckled. "If it is, it's the most elaborate one in history. A 10-billion-year-old prank that's got half the scientific community losing sleep." But beneath the humor was a growing unease. The comet's behavior wasn't just strange, it was unprecedented. That massive halo extending nearly 300,000 kilometers from its nucleus, glowing in layered, organized structures. The sudden shift from a sunward jet to a normal tail. The nickel gas venting, the blue glow hotter than the sun itself. It was as if Trinity Atlas was alive, or at least operating on principles we couldn't yet understand. As dusk fell, Emma and I stepped outside the observatory, the sky now a deep velvet sprinkled with stars. Venus gleamed brightly in the west, a steady beacon in the gathering darkness. Near it, faint but unmistakable, was the fuzzy patch of light that was Trinity Atlas, slowly moving away from the sun, its mysterious blue glow dimming but still present. I raised my binoculars, focusing on the comet's ghostly shimmer. "You know," I said, "there's something almost erotic about it. The way it seduces the light, flaunts its secrets, teases us with glimpses we can barely grasp." Emma laughed softly. "Only you would find cosmic seduction in a comet." We stood there in silence, watching the ancient traveler drift through the void, carrying its secrets across billions of years and millions of miles. But the universe wasn't done with us yet. Later that night, a secure message pinged in my inbox. It was from an anonymous source claiming access to classified data from the Mars flyby. The file was encrypted, but once decrypted, it revealed images, high-resolution shots of Trinity Atlas's surface taken from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And what I saw left me breathless. Geometric patterns, straight lines, regular shapes etched into the comet's icy crust. Structures that looked unmistakably artificial. The comet wasn't just a rock. It was a relic. Okreft. A message carved in stone and ice. And whoever had sent it, and whoever might still be watching, was about to make their presence known. The question was, were we ready? That night, I sat alone in my flat, the decrypted images flickering on my laptop screen like ghostly whispers from the void. The geometric patterns etched into Trinity Atlas's surface were undeniable, straight edges slicing across the icy crust, clusters of shapes arranged with unsettling precision. It was as if some ancient artist had sculpted a message in the frozen silence of space, waiting patiently for eyes like mine to find it. I rubbed my temples, trying to steady my racing thoughts. These images weren't just anomalies anymore. They were evidence. Evidence that challenged everything we thought we knew about comets, about our universe, about ourselves. The clock ticked past midnight as I replayed the images, zooming in on each detail. The patterns resembled angular terraces and linear ridges, some forming near-perfect polygons. Natural erosion? Ice fracturing under thermal stress? Possibly. But not with that kind of order. Not with such deliberate geometry. My phone buzzed. A message from Emma. Asterisk saw the images. This changes everything. Meet at the observatory ASAP. Asterisk. I grabbed my coat and stepped into the chilly night air. The streets of Canterbury silent beneath a blanket of stars. The observatory's dome gleamed faintly in the distance. A beacon for the curious and the haunted alike. Inside, Emma was waiting, her emerald sweater glowing softly under the dim lights. She looked both exhilarated and terrified. A combination I knew well. "We need to tell someone," she said urgently. "But who? The authorities will bury this. The media will spin it. We have to be careful." I nodded. "We can't keep this to ourselves. But we also can't just shout it from the rooftops." We decided to compile our findings meticulously, images, spectral data, signal analyses, and prepare a report for a trusted scientific consortium. Transparency was vital, but so was caution. As dawn approached, we reviewed the data one last time. The comet's behavior, the signal near Mars, the nickel emissions, the anomalous tail, it all pointed to one conclusion. Trinity Atlas was no ordinary comet. It was a relic of a civilization so ancient it predated our sun. A probe, a message, or perhaps both. Just as we packed up to leave, my phone buzzed again. A call from an unknown number. I answered, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Hello." A distorted voice replied, "You don't know what you're meddling with. Let it go. Some stones are better left unturned." The line went dead. Emma and I exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement that we were now part of something far bigger, far more dangerous than a simple comet chase. And as Trinity Atlas continued its silent voyage through the solar system, I realized the truth was no longer just out there in space. It was knocking on our door. But what lay beyond that door? Salvation, revelation, or something far darker? The comet's blue glow pulsed faintly in the early morning sky, as if waiting for our next move. And I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The warning call echoed in my mind long after the line went dead, like a phantom tapping at the edges of reason. Who was that? What did they mean by stones better left unturned? I glanced at Emma, whose usual fiery determination flickered with a shadow of doubt. If anyone could keep a level head, it was her, but even she looked unsettled. We agreed to keep our findings under wraps for now, sharing only with a handful of trusted colleagues. The world wasn't ready, maybe we weren't ready for the implications. Yet, the comet wasn't waiting for permission. Trinity Atlas was moving away from the sun, but its secrets were closing in on us. Days later, I found myself at a remote radio observatory near Dartmoor, invited by Pete and his team to monitor the comet's electromagnetic emissions. The facility was a sprawl of parabolic dishes and humming servers nestled against the wild moorland, where the wind whispered ancient tales through the gorse and heather. Inside the control room, I met Pete, a lanky man with a rumpled tweed jacket and a perpetual look of intense focus. "We're scanning the frequencies Avi Lowe suggested," he said, fingers flying over the keyboard. "So far, nothing conclusive, just background noise and solar interference. But we're watching." Hours stretched as we stared at screens displaying spectral lines and waveform graphs. Then, just as fatigue began to dull our senses, a pattern emerged. A faint, repeating pulse buried within the cosmic static. It was subtle, almost shy, but unmistakably structured. Pete's eyes widened. This isn't natural. It's a signal." My heart pounded. The comet was communicating. But to whom? And why? Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the observatory's windows like a warning. I stepped outside into the chill night, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Trinity Atlas was drifting, an ancient traveler carrying secrets older than time itself. Back inside, Pete and I debated what to do. Broadcast a response? Attempt to decode the message? Each option felt like stepping further into the unknown, like opening a door that might never close. Meanwhile, reports surfaced of unusual activity in the skies over Cornwall. Strange lights, unexplained radio bursts, fleeting shadows caught on amateur cameras. The internet buzzed with speculation. Was Trinity Atlas sending smaller probes? Was it surveilling Earth? Emma contacted me late one evening, her voice tense. "I've been following those reports. Something's happening, and it's connected." The idea that we might already be under observation was both thrilling and terrifying. Were these just coincidences, or signs that the comet story was entwined with our own? As Trinity Atlas edged further from the sun, its glow dimmed but its mystery deepened. The comet was no longer just a visitor. It was a catalyst, stirring forces beyond our understanding. And somewhere in the shadows, watching, waiting, the unknown was closing in. The universe had thrown down its gauntlet, and we had no choice but to pick it up. The following morning, the village of Dartmouth woke under a sky streaked with pale gold. But the atmosphere inside the local cafe where Emma and I met was anything but serene. The usual hum of quiet conversations and clinking cups was replaced by hushed whispers and furtive glances as patrons huddled around their phones, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. Emma sipped her coffee slowly, dressed in a soft cream blouse that contrasted with the dark jeans hugging her slender figure. A delicate silver chain traced the curve of her neck, catching light as she leaned in toward me. "Have you seen the footage from Cornwall?" she asked, voice barely audible. I nodded grimly. Amateur videos showed flickering lights darting through the night sky. Unexplained, erratic, impossible to dismiss as mere atmospheric phenomena. Radio stations were reporting bursts of static and signals that seemed almost conversational. "It's like the comet is sending out scouts," I said, my voice low. "Or maybe it deployed something during the Mars flyby, something small and hidden." Emma's eyes darkened with concern. "If that's true, then these aren't just observations. They're incursions. And we've barely even scratched the surface of what Trinity Atlas is." Outside, a chill wind stirred fallen leaves, swirling them in restless eddies. The world felt on edge, as if holding its breath for what might come next. Later that day, I received an encrypted message from an unknown source. A simple line of text. Asterisk, look closer. The comet isn't just a relic. It's a key. Asterisk, a key. The word echoed in my mind, unlocking a cascade of possibilities. What door could this ancient voyager open? Knowledge? Power? Or something darker? Determined to find answers, Emma and I returned to the observatory, where we pored over spectral analyses and high-resolution imagery. Patterns emerged, subtle shifts in the comet's emissions, rhythmic pulses that hinted at an underlying code. Hours turned into a restless night as we attempted to decode the signals, piecing together fragments like cosmic detectives chasing an elusive truth. Just as dawn threatened to spill its pale light across the horizon, the telescope's sensors caught a sudden flare, a burst of energy radiating from the comet's core, brighter and bluer than anything before. Emma gasped, clutching my arm. It's activating. The comet was awakening, its ancient heart stirring after billions of years of silence. And somewhere deep within, a message was waiting to be unlocked. But as we stared at the glowing orb on the monitor, a new question took hold. What would happen if we turned that key? The moment the flare erupted from Trinity Atlas, the observatory seemed to hold its breath. The monitors glowed with an intense, almost electric blue light, far beyond anything we'd witnessed before. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, as if the universe itself was sending a shockwave through the room. Emma's fingers trembled as she adjusted the spectrometer. Her usual calm was replaced by a sharp focus, eyes darting between data streams and images. "This isn't just activity," she whispered. "It's a signal, a beacon." We worked frantically, decoding bursts of light and radiation into patterns, rhythms, a language of the stars. The complexity was staggering, layers upon layers of information encoded in the flare's spectral shifts. Suddenly, the room fell silent except for the steady hum of machines. Then, from the speakers, a faint but unmistakable sequence of tones began. A deliberate, repeating melody that sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't random. It was communication. I glanced at Emma, whose face was pale but determined. "We're not alone," she said simply. Outside, the world seemed unchanged, unaware of the cosmic revelation unfolding in the quiet English countryside. But inside that small observatory, history was being written. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Pete. Asterisk, multiple observatories worldwide are picking up the same signals. This is global. Asterisk. The implications hit me like a tidal wave. Trinity Atlas wasn't just a comet or a probe. It was a message in motion, a relic of intelligence reaching across eons to connect with us. But with that connection came questions darker than the night. Who sent it? What did they want? And were we prepared for the answers? As the signal's melody continued to fill the room, I realized this was only the beginning, because somewhere out there someone or something was waiting for us to listen. And the universe was about to change forever. Then, as if the cosmos itself was punctuating the moment, the lights flickered. A low rumble shook the ground beneath us, and just outside the observatory's windows, a shadow passed. A shape so vast it blotted out the stars. It was a warning, or an invitation. Either way, the next chapter was coming, and it was going to be nothing like we expected. The shadow loomed, swallowing the starlight outside the observatory like a black curtain drawn across the heavens. My heart hammered in my chest as Emma and I rushed to the windows, eyes straining to pierce the darkness. The night air was thick with an electric charge, a silence so profound it pressed against our eardrums. Then, a low hum began, deep, resonant, vibrating through the very bones of the building. It wasn't natural. It was deliberate, a signal not just of sound, but of presence. Suddenly, the sky itself seemed to ripple. A shimmering veil unfolded across the stars, revealing a colossal structure, a vast, gleaming arc that curved gracefully against the black canvas. It was impossibly huge, dwarfing any earthly construct, and yet elegant, almost organic in design. Emma's breath caught. "It's a ship." I swallowed hard, the weight of the moment crashing over me like a tidal wave. After centuries of wondering if we were alone, after decades of searching the skies, the answer had arrived. Not as whispers or distant echoes, but as a breathtaking, undeniable reality. But the questions burned brighter than ever. Who piloted this vessel? What had it come for? And why now? As the comet's blue glow pulsed in tandem with the ship's silent heartbeat, I realized we were no longer mere observers. We were participants in a story billions of years in the making. The universe had opened its door, and stepping through it would change everything. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. It read simply, "Asterisk, prepare. The real journey begins." Asterisk. Outside, the colossal shadow began to shift, slowly turning its gaze toward Earth. And in that moment, I knew our place in the cosmos was about to be rewritten forever.